Well, welcome to Podcast Tips with Rob Greenlee. We're back live during a holiday week, and my name is Rob Greenlee. And thank you so much for taking a break from your holiday week to join us live. I've got a terrific episode. This is episode 9 of this series, so please stay with us and stay connected in the chat and the comments, and please give us feedback. During the show, we'd love to have your questions and comments in here as well. So we have Chris Pirillo, another legend in the online video and podcasting, live streaming, and event organizing spaces. He's been around a long time, and you may have heard of him, but if you haven't, you're going to hear all about him tonight. So he's been working in the online media and even early broadcast cable sides of things for many years in his past, but he's also a regular on Twitch as well as the YouTube channels as well. He's a streamer that's been doing content for a long time, even the whole kind of live vlogging stuff as well. And so like I said, we're going to take your questions, and we're going to talk a lot about how to approach being a video and podcast creator in 2024 as we kind of see the audio and video world kind of converging here. And then, I've always felt that Chris brings a high level of kind of connection and communication with his viewers. He's very entertaining. And has always pushed the envelope on tech. So it'll be really interesting to get his perspective as we kind of move into this next year. And also, he's got a live streaming channel on Twitch as well called Maker Deck. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a second. But I'm going to pull Chris up on the screen here and say, Chris, thank you so much for joining me on the live show on a holiday week.
So easy. I mean, these days with everybody being remote, like this is my studio, although it's not really, it's a studio, but it's also not a studio. It's like where let me duck, let me move out of the way. There you go. So you can see more collectibles, and I got a 3D printer going on over here. Like it's as dynamic as this camera is fluid. So I got a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, and I also didn't mention that you're also a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm sure a lot of that stuff behind you in the scene is all kind of Star Wars memorabilia, I'm sure.
Pretty much is, yeah, and I'm constantly 3D printing stuff. In fact, I just did Ewok figures. That's what you see up there. I have to take a picture. Sorry, the light there is not as perfect as it could be. Little Ewok figure, and they articulate. I don't know. Everyone needs a hobby.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we all have hobbies, especially if you're into tech and geek and creating content like you have done for so many years. And I just want to mention too, we have a growing community of people following this show every week, and I appreciate all of you being here and being a part of this show and coming in and spending time with me and some very, very terrific creators that have been around this medium for a long time, and that can share some insights into, how they got to where they are and what their journey has been, and it may be of help to you. But I did want to play one video here that gives you a little bit of an example of the contribution that Chris brings to the tech conversation out there. It's always fun and it's always informative. So let's go ahead and play a little YouTube.
I was curious. Like, I wonder which one you were going to, I mean, there's so many videos.
I know. There's certainly a lot of them here, but I was going to play a recent review that you did of the iPhone 15 Pro. So let's go ahead and play that now.
Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and I have been playing with and working with and fiddling with and tweaking with, not twerking with, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now that I've put that thought in your head, I can say that it is definitely an iPhone. It doesn't feel, as an overarching experience, that much different from the previous generation iPhone, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I know that even in using it this brief time, the action button has come in very handy. I have it mapped to, as I had suggested in previous videos, if you watched the fun boxing and the preview of what this might be and how it might work, I mapped the action button specifically to the camera, and just simply by pressing and holding, it launches right into the app. It's always weird to watch. I might have wanted. I would have yourself in video while you're doing video.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how to react. Like, yep, I remember. That's a good point. Yep, good point.
It's very, very meta, right?
Yeah, it's very extremely meta. Especially if
and that's what this show is kind of all about. It's all about trying to help people understand and be able to create great content.
Well,
that's what we've done for years.
To dovetail that, people creating content, etc. The camera I'm using is actually the same iPhone that I was holding on to. So I'm using Mac OS, but I've got the iPhone connected to it, and you can use a feature. It's baked into Mac OS and the iPhone called Continuity Camera, and that allows you to effectively use your smartphone camera, specifically the iPhone camera, as a webcam. Now, that's for people who have Mac OS. So Continuity Camera allows, center stage. That's where if I'm ducking and bobbing and weaving, that's where you're getting the whole zoom in.
I'm sure you're doing that all the time, Chris.
I really, even when no one's watching. But that's the camera I'm using. It's an iPhone. It's the best webcam that you could possibly have, is the smartphone in your pocket. Now, if you don't have Mac OS or an iPhone, you could also use an option that's available called Camo. Re-incubate Camo is the full title of the product, but it's Mac OS, Windows, Android, iOS, and it, again, allows you to mount any smartphone that you have connected either wirelessly, in that case, or wired to your computer, and to use your smartphone as a webcam. It's, people try, the traditional webcams all the time, including the one that's, baked into their laptop, most likely, but they're all, okay, I'm not going to say all, not going to cast aspersions that widely. I would say most, as in 98% of the webcams out there, are total trash, but the cameras or the optics in your smartphones are typically, like light years beyond.
Yeah,
but
it's really good.
To be able to capture that, you just have to have the right conduit, the right software. So, people say, oh, I'm going to wait to get a DSLR and mount that. I'm like, yeah, you can. And I have used that, but my go-to camera that I keep, my primary use case for an iPhone, is specifically this as a webcam. It's like, that's my choice because it is super quality. It connects by way of, if you're using a Mac with Continuity Camera, that's the software feature. Just plug it in, like your either USB-C adapter or Lightning adapter, depending on which phone you have. If you're going the alternative route with Re-incubate Camo, you can even mount it wirelessly and connect it wirelessly. They've got a different technology. So anybody, the bottom line is, can use their smartphone camera as better quality optics. And of course, when it comes to cameras and everything is, I drop everything. Lighting is important. So I flicked on the light, and obviously the white balance for me is off at the moment. So I'm probably more orange than I normally am.
Yeah, you are a little orange.
Adjusted for this particular camera as opposed to another one. So lighting is also something that you can mess with over time. So I'll turn that off again so I can be kind of, again, normal. This is closer to normal color than with the lighting on.
Yeah. So Chris, how do you prepare for shows that you do? What's the creative process that you go through in your head? Because a lot of your shows are very, very informative, but they're also very kind of fun, and have a lot of kind of spirit and energy and things like that a lot of people need. I need a lot more of it myself, so it could rub off on me too. So
yeah, as much as I do plan, I always prefer in personal situations to go with lighter planning, and just kind of let the water flow. That's always my preference, if only because it provides a far more organic type of video or stream or media content. Certainly having an idea about what it is that you want to accomplish is good, knowing what you're getting into. So for example, if I were to do a long form recording, I'd be like, okay, well, these are the topics I want to cover, and this is what I'm going to do with that media after it's done. Am I going to create shorts? Am I going to create long form videos? Is it going to be a podcast? What is it going to be? And in many ways, that dictates. Over time, maybe Apple will adjust that. That very well could be.
Yeah, it is. I've got to turn it off.
Oh, sorry. I'm just making sure I'm not. I'm like, am I playing
So there's a
something
little
that I
echo
forgot
there,
that I
right?
should be
Yeah.
playing? It's happened before. It can happen again.
Yeah.
And for whatever it's worth, this is the rear-facing camera, but it'll also work with the front-facing. But the rear-facing is always a higher quality. So just so you know, yeah. So it just depends on the mission or the overarching goal. And then I kind of work backwards from there in terms of a planning process. Just get an idea of what it is that I want to do. And I'm comfortable enough in front of the camera that you could have asked me 5 minutes ago, hey, Chris, can you jump on in 5 minutes and we can talk about this? And I give you the same amount of knowledge or information as I might have, having planned it ahead of time. Certainly it's a good idea of knowing where you're going, but I tend not to get so tripped up in, you're watching ads. Oh, bless your heart. Thank you so much.
Well, I was
3 cents right now.
Yeah, so I was wanting to show your Maker Deck
yes.
stream. So
Well,
what you're doing there.
You don't have to play the ads right now. I mean, yes, I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I violating a terms of service? I don't know.
I don't know either here. So here, I'll pull it down until they're done, and then I'll pull it back up again.
Yeah, it is a very unique aspect or use case for StreamYard, which is how we became partnered with StreamYard. Actually, what we were doing there and what we do on my personal channel now on Twitch, it would not be possible without StreamYard. StreamYard is just from day one. Like I was only able to ideate what Maker Deck is, and you'll see it when the ads are done. That's how it generates revenue, right?
Right.
Ads got to play because it's a 24/7 Twitch channel, so people dip in and out all the time. Different makers from all around the world, typically 3D printers. People just printing and being active in that maker community. And the only way that this was possible is I had thought about what I was doing on my streams, and I'd show like the thing that I was printing on one printer. And I'm like, well, there's so many people doing so many different things. How do you capture them all? Because everyone wants to have their own channel, which is great. Like they stream 3D prints and nobody's watching, right? And it's like, well, what if I basically put them all together? And like, how would I do that? Well, okay, StreamYard, people are using StreamYard, and I knew about it. And I may have used it once or twice, started experimenting lightly with it. And then I realized, what I could do is effectively set the stage as a process to onboard people and basically have them join ad hoc and manage it through a group of volunteers. Because it's, it takes, you volunteer streaming into the service, you volunteer helping manage it. You basically are a part of something larger than yourself. And so that was the stage that was set there. And so we only have right now 4 people, looks like 4 people currently printing. But I could easily change that too. I can go back, I can go into my other StreamYard on another system and add my print, because I'm doing a couple of articulated salamanders. But yeah, anybody can join ad hoc. And again, this is our use case, or one of our use cases specifically for, I guess maybe I'm already part of it. Okay. Just making sure I'm in the lower here. Like if I point and you got to give it a minute
So
or
you're
so.
actually streaming to your own channel right now off, while we're watching this. Okay.
But I'm muted, right? I'm typically muted in this scenario. So, but yeah, you can see up to 10 people at any given time, and that ebbs and flows throughout the day or night, right? And the idea is that there's always, there's always something going on. There's always somebody, there. There's always some kind of activity, which, allowed us there's my finger. So that's the delay on that front. Like it's real time.
Right.
But because of I think the term, I don't know if it's muxing or basically where, the audio gets out of sync with video over time. That is one challenge that we have not been able to crack the nut on, because like we'll broadcast for 20 days straight, which is fine if you're not broadcasting audio with video. But the moment you want to do audio or have something closer to real time, then you have to reset, get a new StreamYard account, or not account, StreamYard URL, share it to all the people who might be streaming and forward. So we figured out, even though, it wasn't like a solution that checked every box, StreamYard was a solution that allowed us to have boxes in the first place. Like we would not be able to do Maker Deck it's been going on almost 2 years ish. If it was not for technology like StreamYard, and specifically the way that StreamYard implemented it. So it was it made StreamYard made that possible. I would have had the idea. I'm like, oh man, it'd be cool if you could do this. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How's it going to work? how are people going to join? How does this get managed? How does this get, and StreamYard, in doing the research, was the most streamlined experience. And certainly the features that they've added over time have just made the experience easier and easier and easier, specifically for these types of multi-streams, which again are a little beyond, like, if you look at StreamYard, it's kind of like we're using it now in this use case, like a webinar kind of experience, or, a broadcast, very simple. You do it for an hour and you're done. Radically different from what we're doing with MakerDeck, or what I might be doing in a grid, kind of capacity that's just always going. And it would not happen if, to a larger sense, people had suggested, why don't you run a local version of OBS? I'm like, but you can't. How are you going to get other people to join? Oh yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That's
or
what you want.
There were short. I mean, like, or you're contingent on a local system. Generally speaking, StreamYard has been up. It's been, solid. It's rock solid. It's someone else's connection, and anybody can get to it. Anybody can manage that account. So, like I said, it was not exactly as cookie cutter as it could have been, but it gave me enough of an ability to do with it what was done. So
yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, I mean, what's the spectrum of things that people are printing now on your channel? I mean, how is that technology evolving?
Honestly, by the year, I wouldn't say, it's at breakneck speed, but it seems like every year or so a new entrance in the field becomes available. So, like, for example, the what I'm printing on right now, and again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this, because
Sure.
we'll spend the whole time talking about this instead of
Yeah.
what may be more relevant to the people tuned in. Yeah, Viper. It is Pirillo. I know Viper. Everyone knows Viper. So the printer I'm using now is relatively brand new. Wasn't available when I got started, but as soon as it became available, I realized that the one I was using, which was great, could have, been better for me. This device, while it's not perfect, I've definitely run into problems with it, has been a better overarching experience. But it took, a couple years for that cycle to happen, with upgrades and with entrance in the field and changes with software and in conjunction with hardware, to be able to get things more affordable, easier to use, faster. And so the 3D printing space, or at least that part of the maker space, I feel at 2 years is advancing relatively fast, and competition, only makes that easier. Like, steps causes everybody to step up their game.
Yeah, I think what's interesting though is that you're basically enabling a community to contribute content to a common live stream, and I think that's what's kind of new and unique about what you're doing, Chris, is that it's kind of including a larger passion group in contributing to a shared channel that can show how this technology. It's a great example. So I think you've been doing this for what, over a year now, right?
A couple years, yeah.
Couple of years, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
'cause I think
close. Wait, or has it been?
well, I was on this channel with you doing an interview. That was
Yeah, we
back
did an
when
interview.
you were doing some interviews in
Right.
between this process.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what the hope was in experimenting with more live content, with, like, rather than just people printing, actually having conversations, which worked to a certain degree, and probably can and should again. It's just doing that. As you very well know, sometimes coordinating more than 2 individuals can be very challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging.
And when we've got something like a 24/7 stream, that's constantly ongoing, that's where it's critical to have people who may be spending time in front of their computer or in front of their printer, to be able to help facilitate, behind the scenes, and cycle in and out. Right now, Kieran Clark on the other side of the world is doing it. I don't know what we do without Kieran. Because you've got people on one side willing to participate in chat, or throwing their camera or their make up on to the grid, that's on one side, but it still needs to be managed. So, like, both sides, there's nobody who plays, everyone has a critical role. Like, every person in that chain is important, for, not to say it's a kind of a flat organization, but trying to make it such that, it's a constant, it's constantly being iterated, right? There are many changes that I would love to see take place, and figuring out the process around them hasn't exactly been as straightforward as it could have been. But that is still, again, part of the process of like, well, we're doing something different. We're doing something new. It's still going. There are people who love sharing from this aspect. There are people who are more than willing to help facilitate on the other side, and to try to do better for both sides, right? And the onus has been on a handful of us just to make sure that it's able to do what it does, and we have a chance to kind of grow it beyond what it is now. And that's that's everybody. The onus is on everybody who might be producing video or media to go, okay, this is what's working well now. What's going to work, a year from now? What's going to work 2 years, 5 years, et cetera, to be able to kind of
things changing, and the opportunities change too, and the technology evolves too, that enables you to do different things than you have done maybe in the past.
Big time.
And that's also something that's common about your background, is that you've always really kind of pushed the envelope on technology and what it could be used for. And
I shoved it. I don't just push it. I shove it.
I know you shove it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's kind of how this whole kind of creative media landscape has evolved over the years. And I know that you were on my radio show that I did many, many years ago, and you were writing books on online media. You were doing a lot of stuff on Tech TV, which probably a lot of people listening to this aren't even familiar with, because that was a cable TV channel many years ago, right? I could go back and play a bunch of old videos of that, but I figured probably stay more current with today. But yeah, and I know that you're a huge Star Wars fan too, and you've also done a lot of, and I kind of dug deep into what you were doing around your live blogging or vlogging that you did for many, many years. And I know you kind of backed off from that a little bit, but do you think that maybe you were just a little too early on the live blogging or the posting of content online? I know you pulled back a little bit because it was difficult to monetize, right?
It wasn't as difficult. I mean, they're different. It was beset with multiple challenges, not the least which is participation. I had to do a lot of work. I had to do a lot of the heavy lifting, which was unfortunate. And it just, there's only so much one person can do, an individual, right? If you don't have the support that's required to make something work. So, the story of my life is sometimes being too early or trying something that's just too different. That makes sense and is worth trying. And trust me, I'm my entire life risk after risk after risk after risk, and some of it's paid off, and many of the risks I've taken have not.
I mean,
mitigate. That's all you can do is try to mitigate the risks, and even then I get stupid.
And it's hard to really always follow the trends and actually be successful at where the trends are, because oftentimes if you're following the trends, you're oftentimes a little early.
Right.
I mean, I would say about that in regards to my podcasting experience too. It's like, I was embracing podcasting when nobody really cared about it, and I struggled with that aspect of it for a long time, and now it's like mainstream. But yet again, in some ways, the podcasting industry is kind of like falling on tough times.
But that's cyclical. I mean, like, not saying content is content, but let me frame that a different way, because we can abstract the idea of podcasting in the industry, right? It's always had ups and downs, benefits and drawbacks.
Right.
And I was with you, right? I remember podcasting before it was integrated in iTunes natively. So like, way really old school. So when I'm prone to say what used to be difficult is now easy, and what used to be easy is now difficult. And I would say that content is squarely with that. So we're doing a broadcast right now, but there are, how many thousands, if not millions, of other people doing a live broadcast at this very moment on any one given platform or another. Scarcity is no longer a viable model. And so you have to recognize, what are you going to do to stand out? What is what you're doing that much different and going to bring people back, and what's going to keep people interested and hooked? And that's not an easy question to answer, right? And so you have to decide, well, how are you going to do it? And run into the same problems, continue to, with YouTube. As much as I do YouTube or video on YouTube, I still don't know what's going to work today, and I haven't come upon a formula in years that is going to work. Live, I'm comfortable with. Like, I'm very happy with what we're doing with MakerDeck, certainly, and it's different and it's unique, and it certainly has its share of fans. But we could be even with that, we could be doing more, or to be able to take that aspect and be able to try other communities or going after other types of communities. But again, that takes coordination and time and a plan that would scale. And so that's where you have to recognize, okay, you can't doing it the way other people do it isn't going to work. What are you going to be able to do differently that is going to work? Not just conceptually, but actually in execution, because it's not the idea, it is the execution. And when it comes to content, just doing content anymore, it doesn't, sure, it works, but it's catharsis. If any, it's just, so I fart around like on TikTok with shorts and Instagram with reels and cross post them to everywhere else. But like I might get a new Star Wars item. I'm like, oh, let me talk about it it's worth 15 seconds. That's it. I'm not going to do much more than that. 15 seconds is all I'm going to put into it, because there's billions of what I'm sure someone's got the data, billions of viable, amazing pieces of content being published online every minute of every day, like if not every second. So like, even if you've got the perfect hook, sometimes the perfect storm is it's elusive. And I think that's going to be more and more prevalent as more content and people do what they're going to do with content come online. I don't think it's going to go away. I think the business opportunities within shift. That's where I've been kind of at the crossroads. I'm like, well, I'm better off enabling others, or I'm better off figuring out how to take what it is that I've learned and translate it for other people to be successful, which, they've got different assets, different liabilities than I might have had, different opportunities. So,
yeah. So I saw that you've had a channel for a long time on YouTube, and you've got a large number of subscribers to that channel.
Yeah, but subscriber count doesn't mean anything on YouTube.
I know, exactly. And that's kind of where I was going to go with this is that, I've had a channel on YouTube for a long time too, and I don't have a huge subscriber number. But I do wonder, I mean, I've got a bunch of old content up on my site, and I know you do as well. And I know that at one point I heard you say that you were thinking about starting a whole new channel that would be more focused, right? What do you think that appropriate strategy is now? I mean,
you finding the right team.
Going niche? Is it going really niche?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's niche, but also the right team. Because again, you can have the right idea, but without the right execution, you're never going to go anywhere. So
I guess all you have to look at is Mr. Beast, right? To talk about a team, right?
Yeah, he's in a completely different class at this point. Completely different. Yeah. Completely.
But it's also, he is an example. I think it's really interesting as we think about all of our efforts on YouTube to get scale. I mean, he was doing things that was impacting people's lives in a significant way and displaying them on his channel by giving money away, right? There's nothing more powerful than that, right? But also, very much kind of interesting kind of situations he was producing content in, but all of us don't always have that ability to have those kind of resources and to have the time to develop that. And so each one of us, how do we need to think about the content that we're making? Should it follow our passions, or should we just try and find a niche and earn that reputation?
I'm sure that there's a right answer for this. I don't know if following your passion's enough anymore.
Right.
I realize that's flies in the face of convention or conventional wisdom. Follow your passion. And like, yeah, I don't know. I've followed plenty of passions before, but it's more of a Venn diagram. Follow your passion, but it's got to cross over with what people want and what you're able to, what people want, what you're good at, and where you can make money. that's
Yeah.
that's where it matters. Like just following your passion is great. You're interested, but unless other people are interested, good luck. And maybe your niche is too niche, right? Or maybe it's already so well covered. What are you going to bring to the table that's different? If you can. And even if you think you have the right solution, even if you think that you have the right answer, it doesn't mean that it's actually going to land.
Yeah. Well, I guess nothing is guaranteed now, right? So all you can do is just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and do the best you can and try and stand out.
Yep.
And try and grow. I mean, on my channel, I had a bunch of old videos up there that got hundreds of thousands of views. But those don't necessarily translate into current videos, right?
Nope.
So
Nope.
so it's one of those things that you're always kind of starting over. But and then nowadays you kind of, if you look at podcasting, it's actually being increasingly linked up with YouTube. So podcasters are increasingly thinking about YouTube as a companion kind of strategy to what they're doing. And that's kind of what the purpose of this show is to help people try and bridge that divide that currently or has historically been there between doing YouTube videos and doing like an audio podcast, and trying to synergize those together. I don't know, what's your kind of view on that kind of movement that's happening?
I mean, inevitably, that's what happens with platforms. They evolve. So it's nothing surprising. That's for sure. I'm not saying it was inevitable, but YouTube's interesting because I don't know if YouTube knows what it wants to be. And I know people would argue other than that, but like, does it want to be shorts? Does it want to be live? Does it want to be podcast?
It wants to be everything, doesn't it?
But the problem is that unless you know how to optimize your channel for any one of those things, it's a nightmare. And I know some people, oh no, it's easy. And like, yeah, no, it isn't. Like if it was easy, like, you'd find a lot more success stories. And I'm not saying those don't exist. And I'm not saying you don't have to put, the work into it to be able to rise above the fray, which again, remember, what used to be difficult is now easy. Easy is now difficult. It's, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of chaff. And the scarcity, the idea of scarcity is quaint. It's that we passed that over a decade ago easily. So continuing to predicate your approach on a model that is just not necessarily going to work. And again, maybe you're so niche that it doesn't matter. You do have scarcity, but for most people that might be creating content, scarcity isn't a thing. So on the optimization front, back on that, like you go to Twitch knows what it wants. Twitch knows what it is. Live streaming. That's what you get. Live stream. Oh, and here's the clips and things, but it's all about the live stream. That's it. Your channel is optimized for live streaming, period, end of story.
YouTube, well, it's also optimized for tech and gaming and things like that. No,
I mean, I'm not going to say that gamers don't go and tech doesn't go. What I'm talking about is just the concept that Twitch is there for live streaming as the value. Like everything, the genre, the type of people use it can be used 7 ways from Sunday. The prospect, the very value add that's at the core prospect of Twitch is live streaming. YouTube isn't. It's got a live streaming feature. It's got shorts. It's got podcasts. It's got this. It's got that. But it's got so much, and without a clear way to be able to get to the things that you want. And even if you for years people have complained, I subscribe to your channel and I don't see notifications. It's like, yeah, this is why, to go back to the subscribers don't matter, like because YouTube it uses notifications differently, right? And it pings your subscribe. So you fought tooth and nail to get a subscriber count legitimately, assumedly, in some way, shape, or form, only to find out that the people who subscribe to you that you finally connected with aren't going to see your stuff, even if they want to see your stuff, even if they love your stuff, because the YouTube feed is different. It's going to optimize for time in app or time on, watching video. Beyond that, like they care about creators, but not in the way that I'm not saying it's disingenuous, but it teeters on disingenuous for me. Like they care about creators, but they also don't. They care about time in site or on site, time in app, watch time, right? They care about
translates into advertising revenue, right?
Totally. And I get it. I understand that as a business prospect, but that I feel waters down the value of content or creating or expression
Mm-hmm.
that just hurt a lot of older school creators,
Yeah.
or, forces people to up their game, hey, you're not going to hear me challenge that. But sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. And in this case, I think that's exactly what happened. And so as they add more and more features, they are compelling, no doubt about that. But you're fighting, you may be able to use that feature, but you're still fighting the quote unquote algorithm. And I know there are quote unquote experts who will say, oh, you just got to optimize for this. I'm like, I know plenty of people who optimize, but they're still not seeing what they should be seeing, because scarcity isn't something that you can rely on. It just isn't. Like, there's an immense amount of content that's produced every second of every day on every damn platform that's out there. So that's your competition.
Well, it depends on what YouTube is recommending, right, and suggesting. I think people are really, really dependent on that. And if they see some level of traction with the video early on, that's a clue to promote it more, and thus it's feeding the engine of sorts, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention too, at the end of the show, I'm going to have a StreamYard merchandise giveaway. So a hoodie and a StreamYard mug I'll give away. So just enter hashtag the yard in the comment field of your preferred viewing platform, and that'll be added to the pool of entries. And at the end of the show, I'll just draw a winner, and then you would send me an email with your address, and we will ship out to you a couple of merch items for a post-Christmas surprise. But Chris, yeah, I know that you have kind of dabbled around with podcasting, and you've been living mostly in the world of pre-recorded video and streaming stuff. And I know, you came out of television, so you have that kind of video strength. But do you think that YouTube will be able to capture a significant amount of the podcasting, which has been predominantly over the last few years seen as more of an audio medium? Do you think it'll be able to capture a big chunk of the podcast community over in its platform?
Yep.
Okay.
It's YouTube. It's a juggernaut. It was a juggernaut, before it was a juggernaut, right? That definitely has staying power for sure. That's not, I don't even think that's a stretch to say, it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. You've got, a few players, in centralization, which is just interesting because the pendulum's gone that way. But are we going to see ourselves going back to decentral? I don't know. I can't prognosticate, but I can say that YouTube doing something does make the option interesting. It's not necessarily a huge win, though, in the sense that YouTube was doing live video back in the Ustream days. And I tested it, and I used it in the channel, and it worked to a certain degree. But then because of the algorithm, I got hit. So I was using a YouTube feature, but because things weren't the way they allegedly needed to be in a greater construct, using the feature that YouTube gave me hurt the channel that I used the feature in. So, again, I'm not bullish on the idea that it's amazing to see, but I do believe that it'll certainly tantalize a lot of folks, because YouTube is kind of the name of the game as far as video goes. Whether it's live, not as much, and I think they need to do a better job with that. But certainly long form, I think there's a good opportunity to capture that market.
Well, it also, I think live is a unique challenge, just in general around the production of video. And if you look at a lot of the shows that are wildly successful on YouTube in general, very few of them are produced live. I would say most of them are recorded, and heavy post-production work have gone into them. And so doing a live show and having it compete with highly produced programs, I mean, sure, this show is an example of that, right? I can do transitions, I can pull you in close, I can pull back and include us both here. And it does create a little bit of eye candy for the viewer, but it's kind of hard to compete against the shows that are very, very highly produced programs. And to some degree, I think YouTube is competing with the perceptions around television increasingly. So do you think, given your background with TV and things like that, do you see that as a big issue right now?
What specific issue?
Well, is the kind of expectations are escalating
Oh,
towards
yeah.
more of a TV type of experience on YouTube, and those are the programs that seem to be doing quite well.
In production, right, and I think there's something to be
Yeah.
said about that. And it takes the right spit and polish, and sometimes you got to work with what you got. You can't expect caviar on a peanut butter budget. And that's, something that everyone's going to wrestle with. But, the higher production value you can throw into something, the better off you're going to be. And that includes the software that you choose to use, like, using StreamYard and the features that come within it. That definitely does help. There's, I've never been the type to feel like the tool is the linchpin. It's the content, and then the tool to complement the content. That's where it's critical. So they complement each other, but without that core idea, you don't have much. Without the right platform, you don't have much. Without the right execution, you don't have much. So it's an amalgamation of these independent variables that it adds up differently for everybody, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have up your YouTube channel.
It's horrible.
And let me pull it up here.
I say it's horrible because it's always in the process of being tweaked, because I'm trying to find that formula that's going to work, and I don't know if I have that formula yet. So YouTube wants me to be a billion things. I'm like, okay, I'll try to do.
Well, yeah, it's same thing that I struggle with too. I have like 4 or 5 different shows that I do, and I publish it to my own personal, YouTube channel.
Yep.
But I know that some people will recommend that you create a separate channel for every show that you do, but that also means that you're spreading your subscribers out over.
I understand. Trust me, it's already painful just hearing this, because I get it to the nth degree. I get it, and that's where, I was unfortunate in being one of the first YouTubers and not really having a niche. I was geeky and techie, but found that the vlogs ended up, addressing a different part of the market, and they were popular in their own right, in the same channel. So I've made all the mistakes. I continue to make all the mistakes. Don't do what I did. That's basically the bottom.
I'm just trying to come up with, what is the right model that
different for?
Because I think I'm doing kind of the same thing you are, and it's because I've had content on YouTube for 16 years.
Right. Yep.
So
I get it.
That's the truth of it, and so it's just one of those things. I hate to move beyond my own personal brand. I kind of want to keep my own personal brand, and build around that instead of fragmenting myself across all these different.
It's figuring out what's going to work and trying to putting the best faith effort into right tactics into that strategy, and that's where I'm still kind of like, well, what about this? What if we try that? What about this? Is this going to work? Is this something that's viable? And so I've got it. There's another idea that I kind of wanted to try based upon a video that my daughter had been watching. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if I could take that same approach to something else, and I wonder how people would react to that. And so I'm on the cusp of wanting to experiment with that would largely be narration driven. And see how that works. And because I just have this tremendous feeling, like if it's done the quote unquote right way, no one else in at least the tech space is doing that. Okay. So I'm like, or in the geek space, in the tech geek, that in that realm, no one's really doing that. And I'm like, okay, I have a chance to do something that is easy, that could scale, that, fits the audience, that could get engagement. So that's where I've kind of been I've been racking my brain trying to do something like that for years. And I'll try this. No, it doesn't work. I'm like, you're doing it long enough. It just doesn't work. And so you just keep trying and trying and trying and trying in hopes that this is the thing. Okay, if we do this, then, but it doesn't. Sometimes you can put the best, I've uploaded videos that by all measurements should have taken off.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I know you built your career around tech, and I keep hearing from the advertising space, at least on the podcasting side, that a lot of advertising would love to get into tech programs now, which is kind of an interesting twist. But yet at the same time, tech doesn't appear to be like at the top 10 of the most popular genres, right? So it's almost like these niche advertisers are trying to reach kind of a tech audience, but
Really, tech isn't.
yeah,
Actually kind of surprising me. Lifestyle, I figured would be right up there.
well, it is. I mean, it's like it's like in the 15th place or 12th or 15th place, one of the two of the most sought after
Well,
places to advertise, but it's up there, right? It's still a popular place, but you've dabbled in lifestyle stuff as well as tech, and it's just interesting, kind of how that. I mean, I do a lot of tech with podcasting and things like
yeah,
that
but
myself.
yeah,
Yeah,
I believe that if you're talking sponsors, right?
yeah,
I believe you're better off. Okay, if I'm doing tech stuff, I'm better off finding, and I'm just gonna say, I'm better off partnering with Lego or partnering with
yeah,
Pepsi or partnering with Oscar Mayer, like something that's not technology related in any way, shape, or form. But that's
hmm
not always a direct leap, because there are people who are into tech, but they also need to
right,
eat, and or
right,
they also need these solutions. And I as long as that makes sense, it makes sense. I know, not that it's a running gag, but like on podcast, the mattress companies went hog wild. I'm like, okay,
Casper mattresses,
yeah, I
and
mean,
right, yeah,
and it's great, but like anytime someone approaches me, well, you can advertise us and we'll pay you X per bounty, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't know, because the problem is, here's that scenario. I talk about a mattress, right? Whatever one, I couldn't even tell you what we're using now. It was one of those not inflatable ones, that the foam that they had sent, not tied to an affiliate program. They just wanted content done. That was great. But I could talk about it for a year and make one sale. But if those people, those 100,000, however many people listen to that show over the period of time, going, I need to get a mattress, I'm going to go get it over here. And if I don't get credit for that sale, or credit for that branding, or credit
yeah,
for giving them that attention, that's where I'm like, yeah, it doesn't fly with me. I'm willing to do stuff for like free product, right? I'm like, yeah, it's
yeah,
fine. Like, I don't think it's going to get, do much. Like a company had emailed about phone cases for a phone that's not even released yet. I'm like, yeah, it's not out yet.
right.
They said, yeah, it's fine, but we can send it over. I'm like, okay, that's great. Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, that's
It's all about the pre-sale.
yeah.
So, no BS catfishing wrote a comment. What's this show about, and are we learning something? I mean, I think part of the challenge that this show has is trying to diagnose what's going on with the content creator community, and how it can be a very frustrating place to be, and trying to dissect it and trying to understand it, even from folks that are as longstanding and experienced as both Chris and I have. It's a humbling space, and I guess for me, it really gets back to expectations. I mean, what is your expectation that you have in creating content? And I keep telling people on my other shows that I do, that really having a monetization first kind of approach to this has not always proven to be the best way to go. So, and I think when we talk about, you know, monetization and creating content online as our kind of our primary end goal, is probably doing a little bit of a disservice, because it's not so much about that. It can be at some point, but it doesn't always end like that. I don't know what you think about that, Chris.
I mean, there's the moment I sit there and say, don't do this, then someone does it and it works for them. So I'm very careful. I think focusing on what it is you want to accomplish is never going to hurt you. And being open to change without losing what makes it interesting is
Hmm.
also a challenge, especially as more and more people um, might latch on to what it is that you're doing. Making any kind of change at that point could be, a tremendous challenge. So, it's a double-edged sword, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea to think how you're going to pay for it, because it's time, right? It's effort, it's energy, and there's value, right?
Mhm.
That is very important. One of our, the goals for MakerDeck was, we got ad revenue that's coming in. It definitely helps sustain it. Finding, a partner or sponsor in StreamYard was that was the ultimate plan. Like, look, we've got people that are makers that are using this. They're obviously very comfortable with live video, maybe even streaming in their own channel, always looking for the newest technologies to make stuff with. And look, we're making with StreamYard in a way that it's not necessarily a let me put it this way. StreamYard, we're not StreamYard's. We're probably one of StreamYard's best way of showcasing its technology, to the point of, like, what is it? Hang on, if I get that handle correctly, Shefire said, my laptop lost power during live audience hung in there, popped back in quickly without losing the stream. That's a benefit, right? And when you realize that, that technology affords you latitude, it's a big win. And but getting people to use it sometimes is the biggest hurdle. So we solved that problem with MakerDeck, because in order to join with your 3D printer, in order to join MakerDeck, you have to use StreamYard. So then you actually, instead of just, not downloading it, but instead of trying it on your own, which you're going to do, and there may be, other available options, we actually get people to use it. And we obviously have people watching it for sure, 24/7, no doubt about that. But it's getting people to actually use it that I think, in attracting the hundreds upon hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, to use it and register to use it, has been, I think, a huge win, to be able to showcase by use the underlying technology that is StreamYard to power MakerDeck, at least what we're doing with it.
Yeah, and Christopher has a good comment too that really gets back to what I was just saying about, his why of being a content creator is for being a part of the education space and trying to make a difference. And oftentimes our careers and our paths and our lives, if we can help others and we can contribute to other people's education, we can really make a difference in the world. That could be a strong return on our investment of time in doing some of this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something to consider too. It depends on what your goals are, depends on what your mission is. If your expectations are to be like a Mr. Beast in, a month, it's probably not realistic to achieve that. So, and consistency is important. I don't know, Chris, I mean, is there any feeling that you have on that about, I know you've invested a lot of time over the years creating content, and I think you did have an expectation that there was going to be some revenue that came from that. It may not have matched your expectations. Do you think that's an issue that we should be concerned about?
I don't know if it's an issue. I mean, maybe it's a bigger pie, but like I said before, scarcity is not a model anymore.
Right.
Like you may get a chunk of pie, but it's going to be a sliver. So don't expect this to be what it was 20 years ago. That's the bottom line.
Well, and even back then it was difficult because there wasn't a lot of advertising money.
That's what I'm saying. What used to be easy is now difficult. What used to be difficult is now easy. So that's the delta we crossed at some point in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot more people doing it now. I think a lot more genres of content are saturated with content right now. And there's some terrific content creators out there. But that doesn't mean that you can't get out there and carve a niche for yourself now. It just may take a little longer and have more commitment to personal development, and also just more aggressive marketing, I guess, is part of it too, to try and stand out.
But even then, even if you do all the right things, even if you check all the boxes, that doesn't mean anything anymore. It just doesn't. Not even close.
Yeah. So I think that there's always been a factor of luck when it comes to this stuff too. I mean, it's back even when I was back doing my nationally syndicated radio show, I did it for 7 years. I think that there is a certain amount of luck, and also being at the right place at the right time that has a factor in this. And you start moving down a direction, and then you start building your relevancy on a particular topic area, and your influence and your reach starts to it goes through fits and starts. It's not like something that just happens, from day one.
Yep.
It'll go like for months with very small growth, and then all of a sudden you'll have one thing that hits, right? And it causes a burst in your audience or
Potentially
things that happen,
that could be
right?
good or bad. I mean, you don't want spikes. You want to be sustained, right? It's not about going viral, right? That doesn't, and then you're back to normal. Like that didn't do anything.
Yeah,
Didn't do anything.
right.
You want to sustain. That's if there was a goal between the two, sustain. I would much
Mhm.
rather have something that is far more predictable than something
Yeah.
that's haphazard, scattershot.
Well, especially if you're trying to build something that would be more akin to like your own business or having steady revenue coming in.
For
I do
sure.
think a lot of people have been laid off from their work and their jobs, and there's a desire to create a second income or a side hustle or build their own company, and increasingly people are thinking about being a content creator now because
Yep.
I mean, it is a good time to be a content creator right now, and I do think that there's opportunities there. But like you say, Chris, I mean, I think we have to be honest about it and say that it's not an easy road,
No,
and I
it's
think
not.
that's something that all of us need to consider in our path and where our passions are and where our skills are too,
Yep.
right?
It's true.
So anyway, so we have had a few questions here, and I think we can probably, in a few minutes here, we can start to wrap it up and do our drawing and our giveaway on the swag from StreamYard. And if you're wanting to keep up with what's happening with StreamYard, here let me share a link to a website that's out there to support StreamYard. It's new.streamyard.com, and it basically is kept up to date with the latest new features of the platform. So as we like over the last couple of weeks, we rolled out support for Instagram and Twitter comments and things like that. So that's the place to go to get the latest updates on what the platform is capable of doing, and I think it's a terrific thing. And if you're not currently a StreamYard user and you're interested in using this technology to create a show or do something for your company, you can certainly go to streamyard.com/RobG and get a free trial and get on board and start doing this yourself. So I've really enjoyed doing it. I've spent most of my career as an audio podcaster, but doing this live on the video side is exciting. I mean, I came out of radio, and so live is something I've always enjoyed and have had a good time doing it. But Chris, I mean, are you actually doing any audio podcasting currently today,
No,
or it's
no.
still all on the video side?
Yeah,
Okay,
video.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's
audio is fine, but it's not. I never was able to crack that nut, even when I tried doing it live years ago.
yeah,
It's
and
fun, but it's just different.
yeah, and it's not something I've always felt, and we've known each other a long time and have gotten together many times to talk about it. And I think your passion has always been around the video side because of your talent and your ability to entertain and bring energy on a visual scale, which is each one of us have our skills. Mine isn't so much on the visual side; it's more could be on the audio side,
Right.
and you can be more creative on that. And that's what's really interesting about what's happening with the convergence and support podcasting within YouTube is that it's causing a lot of consternation in the podcasting industry because the industry wants to think of themselves as compelling audio, and this whole video thing is kind of like saying, oh, we can't really call video in YouTube a podcast. So there's a conflict there.
I guess I wouldn't be so hung up on what to call it. Just take it for what it is.
Well, you were at the podcast dinner back in, what was it, 2005 up in
Eons.
Seattle, because we
Yep.
both used to live in Seattle. And I know back at that time, the podcast community in the very early days, like in the 2004 to 2005, didn't really like the name podcast.
But it's like
Yeah.
ultimately the way I look at it is like, hey, are people listening? Great. Where are they listening?
Yeah.
Over there? Great. That's what, I mean, that was the whole gamble of YouTube. Like, well, we do your podcast, then you own your content. That makes sense. But if no one's listening, or if you can get 1,000 people who don't know who you are tuned into you, had I not done what I did with YouTube, I don't know where I'd be. I really don't. Not to say that YouTube has necessarily worked for me in the later years, but that is, again, success is a, long winding path that just twists and turns. So yeah, it's a challenge, always a challenge, but I try not to get hung up on the terminology. That's not my focus.
Yeah. And I think the industry has had a love-hate relationship with that term, but the honest truth is that nobody ever had a better name.
Yeah, that's the
so
thing.
It's almost like I don't like it, but I don't have any other ideas.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's audio on demand. That's actually better, right?
You call me anything you want, just not late for dinner. That's
right. Exactly. Well, let's give away the swag. So this the sweatshirt and a StreamYard mug. So let me pull up the screen share and so get in the comments and type in the hashtag #TheYard. And it'll be great to have you in there. I think we're up to like 40 entries now. So I'll give you another couple of minutes to jump in there and add your name to it. And please stick around. And because I'm going to ask you for an email to the winner to send to my email address. And let me pull that up here so you can see that as well. And I believe it's right here. Yeah. So this is the email that you'll send your mailing address to get your StreamYard merch. So let's go ahead and pull that up on the screen now. And we did strike over the hour. So I will pull that into the stage, and there we go. And so big drum roll here. We're up to 41 entries.
Wow.
And so let's go ahead and pull the ripcord. And like I said, if your username comes up, send me an email to the address that's on the screen, rob.greenlee@gmail.com. And so let's hit the draw button, and we'll see. I saw Chris. I saw your name in there.
What? I didn't use a hashtag.
Oh, you did?
Commented, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't use a hashtag. No.
Or,
I'd yield anyway. I'd say no.
Yeah, or somebody else is using yours. One of the two.
Weird.
So, a Mission Fit. You're the winner of the StreamYard mug, and a StreamYard hoodie, like the one I'm wearing. So send me your address, and I'd be happy to get you your merch. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on the show today and spending time with Chris and I. And definitely give me some feedback if you want to hear anything specific on the show. I can also be found at these addresses too on X, Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and then I do have a website at robgreenlee.com. And if you want to see more from Chris, just go to Pirillo.com. I believe that redirects over to Twitch, I think. And then you also have a YouTube channel too. But is there any other things that I missed here, Chris?
No, that's about it.
That's it. And if you want to go to the Twitch channel, it's actually twitch.tv/MakerDeck. And
if you're into 3D printing.
Yes, if you're into 3D printing, which it's possible that some folks here might be, but Mission Fit, definitely send me an email to rob.greenlee@gmail.com, and we will get you your merch out to you ASAP. So thank you so much. And Chris, thanks for joining me. I know you're out in the Seattle area, and I appreciate it. I'm on the East Coast, so I know it's earlier in the day for you, but anyway, it was great to catch up with you, and thank you everybody for joining us on the show. And I appreciate you being here, and thank you so much. And maybe what I can do is if there's any comments here that we can talk about, Here, let me bring that up. Beauty Bubble says this conversation has been refreshing. It's always good to listen to Chris, as his candor. It's always
my candor is, I'm
extraordinary.
usually pretty dang direct, that's for sure.
Well, you've been through a lot in this medium, and it's the same with me. So I fully appreciate your candor, and definitely appreciate it. So I wish you the most luck, and I also know that recently, I don't know that I mentioned this earlier in the show, but you spent a couple of years working for Intel as well.
Mhm.
So
Very briefly, 4 years. Yeah.
doing some evangelism for them. So
Mhm.
hopefully you'll get your next opportunity at some point, and I keep my fingers crossed, and I'm doing the same thing myself. So it's
I hear you. It's all
all right.
good.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. If I didn't get to your question, whatever, thank you for posting it in here. And I will be back next Thursday again for another episode of this show. And can I do a lighting show? Okay. Yeah. I can probably do that. I have my own kind of lighting here. I don't know, Chris.
I have some, but they're just not on. I should
Ah,
have turned it on. That's what I should have done.
oh, like background lighting, I think is
Right.
maybe what he's talking about. Yeah, I can
Right.
change the color of this background just with a remote control. So it's actually, I kind of align it with the branding of the show that I'm doing. Anyway, well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening. And thank you so much, Chris, for coming in here and joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So yeah. So let me fade this in. All right. Okay.
And we're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. Easy peasy lemon.